I assume you were in the room and saw the great conversation that we had there. I just want to, say this is the last day of a back to school fighting for public education bus tour, and you can't talk about public education without talking about the importance of community schools and how they come together with partners in the community to make sure whatever needs the students have are being met, whatever needs families have are being met so that students can be successful. And part of that is food insecurity. So I'm really thrilled to be here not only with President of AFT Randi Weingarten, but also my colleague, Secretary Vilsack, who's, is critically important to him too. Secretary?
Well, listen, partnerships, I think you heard it in there, partnerships is what it's all about. USDA has a very strong partnership now with schools across the country to improve nutrition, expanded access to school breakfast programs, a better lunch menu program with more nutritious offerings, resources to help schools basically better connect with local producers, opportunities to encourage schools to continue their summer feeding program and be a prominent advocate for our Sunbucks program, providing for the first time real resources for family members, free reduced lunch kits, expanded opportunities for school gardens. We talked about that today. So there's I think a strong relationship, and there's just a fundamental fact here. The better nutrition, the better education. It's just that simple. Teachers will tell you kids who are hungry aren't the students they're intended to be. That's our goal here, is to make sure that kids get healthy meals and that they get enough to basically go in that classroom and be the students that they're intended to be.
So it's an honor to be with the two secretaries that every single day are about nurturing people. This is what the Promise Mentality is about. And frankly, it starts with public education. But what is important about Secretary Cardona's tour this year, and why I'm really happy to be here today in this school in Pittsburgh, is it's showing how policy transformed into practice can transform lives. And that's what community schools do, and that's what Faison does, and that's what you saw today in terms of the roundtable. What we need to do in America is we need to give opportunity to more kids, and that's what public education is doing and is trying to do for every single school across the country. And there's no better way to see it than to be in the schools with teachers, with principals, with superintendents, with food service workers, with guidance counselors, and the most important, kids.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Tom. Happy to take some questions.
Secretary Cardona, will there be another ESSER-like emergency funding for schools to provide resources for community schools like this in the future? September 30th is only.
Sure, yeah. The American Rescue Plan dollars, which were critical, right when President Biden took office, provided $130 billion across the country to keep schools open, feed students, make sure we have enough school social workers, enough teachers to help with reading. We've been working with states to make sure they're thinking about sustainability. We're pleased that many states are continuing a lot of the efforts that were started through the American Rescue Plan dollars. What we're doing at the federal level is ensuring that our annual budget requests reflect what we're hearing in the communities. That while we've seen pretty significant growth in reading, for example, the most growth from 22-23 school year since 2009, that we're not done. We're not caught up. And in catching up to pre-pandemic levels isn't the goal. We got to go further than that. So our budget proposal will reflect the importance of funding education. But as I said before, I'm fighting for public education. I'm fighting proposals that want to cut the funds that are there. So we're going to continue to fight for public education. We're going to continue to fight for public dollars to make sure schools like Faison can continue to serve students in whatever their needs are.
Secretary Cardona, Pittsburgh, like a lot of cities, is facing enrollment declines and could be closing schools soon. How is the federal government responding to this moment and trying to limit the disparate impact on students?
Well, obviously, we want all students to be successful at all levels. We heard Heather say that in the room, right? All kids should be able to have access to high quality education. And disparity is something that we pay attention to through our surveys, but also through our Office for Civil Rights. I recognize that there are some conversations here in this community about how to handle that, are they consolidating schools, are they closing schools? And those are local issues. I think the key thing for me is ensure that community voices listened to, different perspectives are taken into account so that the decision is best for the community.
And one of the reasons to be in Pittsburgh is that there's a lot of gems and jewels in Pittsburgh that people don't often see when they're not here. And I think that as that what we've seen in Pennsylvania in particular is that for years, a lot of the rural poor districts and the urban poor districts were shortchanged by a funding formula that didn't work. And last year, give the legislature and Governor Shapiro a lot of credit for starting to do the down payment to change that. If the Pittsburgh Public Schools has the resources that some of the suburban schools have, they would have the kind of experiential learning that the superintendent talked about. What we hear today is a lot of a public-private partnership to try to get kids the resources they need to try to make sure that the schools are deserving.
Secretary, you talked about the garden program. Is this something new that has been started, or how is this the school districts can get involved in having something like this to make it successful in the school districts?
This is an expanded opportunity in terms of better nutrition and better understanding for kids to understand why nutrition matters to them. We know from experience that when kids get their hands dirty in the garden, they see how things are grown, they begin to take pride in it, they try it out, they like it, they tell their parents about it, and next thing you know, mom and dad are also eating safe fruits and vegetables. So we know there's a direct connection between that kind of involvement. So yes, there are resources available at the Department of Agriculture to spawn and to encourage personal gardens. We also in Pittsburgh just recently announced Pittsburgh as one of our urban gardening centers. So we're looking for an expanded opportunity in terms of farming generally. It could be a rooftop, it could be a lot that's vacant, it could be the backyard. We're excited about making sure that people understand where their food comes from and how difficult and challenging it can be to grow, and so that we have a better understanding and appreciation for our farmers, ranchers, and producers.
So is this a grant that this districts would have to apply for?
They apply for it through the Department of Agriculture, and there are a number of other programs. I mentioned the local food purchasing agreement program. That's basically allowing school districts to apply for resources through the Department of Agriculture here in Pennsylvania. We're also writing resources to do this, so that they can in turn purchase more of their food for their youngsters directly from producers here in Western Pennsylvania. And it's designed not only to help from nutritional needs, but also to give those small and mid-sized farming operations, those family farming operations, a better chance of survival and a better chance of continuing to do what they love to do, which is to farm.
Last question. If I may, Secretary, with ESSER funding, we know that Pennsylvania does have a lot of money left on the table from districts across the state. How is your department responding to that and getting those MITE students?
Sure. It's critically important that these dollars make it to the classrooms. And I've had conversations across the country with superintendents, state chiefs, who recognize how valuable it is to have these resources to address some of the deficits in their communities. Here in this community and across the country, there are plans to draw down the money. Many have it obligated already, but they recognize that the money needs to be spent, and they have plans to spend the money to help students. That's what it's intended.
We're going to take last question right here.
The school in Georgia had a handful of school resource officers, a rapid police response. What part can schools do to ensure that they're safe from violence? How do you reassure parents and educators who continue to be so concerned about this?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Ron. Look, when I saw that, heard about it, I thought, here we go again. And you're right. They did a lot within the school to alert and get the message out. But it goes to show you that, like so many other things, it's a partnership with the school. The school alone can't handle all this. We need safe communities. There is no reason a 4-year-old should have access to an assault weapon. Okay, that's not something that the school is going to be able to fix. With that said, last year alone, I sent a letter out to all the principals in the country talking about proper gun storage. So there is a role in some ways for trusted messengers, school principals, to make sure that families had what they need. I called very clearly for Congress to act. We need more. You know, I'm proud that the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act provided $2 billion for our schools, $1 billion for school counselors, school social workers, which results in 14,000 additional mental health providers. Another $1 billion to make sure our schools are safe. So many schools use that to tighten up their school response plans. But that alone is not enough. We need action. And we did get some legislation on gun safety, the first in decades, because of a bipartisan effort. But we cannot stop there. We need safer communities. We need less access to assault weapons, children. We need additional mental health support for our communities, not only to prevent, but look at the trauma in that community now for decades to come. This is serious, and we do need Congress to act. I worry, Lon, that we become desensitized as a country and we normalize this. It's not normal. I'm speaking not only as Secretary of Education, I'm speaking as a father who drops his children off and wants them to come home. It's unacceptable. No parent should have to deal with that. We called the community, we called Georgia officials, and making whatever we can make available to them to support them. But I think, you know, schools are a part of the problem.